Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this 6-inch tapestry crochet circle. This is actually the base of the second bag pattern in the 2022 Bag Along Cal on Stitches and Scraps, and you'll find all the details of that in the tutorial post. Check out the description on this video to get that link. But this does not just have to be the bottom of a bag. It's a 6-inch circle, right? So you can do anything with it that you would do with a 6-inch circle. You can make it a trivet. You can put a border on it as a decorative doily. You could do just the center as a set of coasters. Very versatile pattern. So, do whatever you like with it. It does not have to be the bottom of a bag. I'm using mine as the bottom of a bag. I'll be using these Brava mini skeins, which We Crochet sent me for free for this project. The colors that I chose are Custard, Fairy Tale, Lady Slipper, Marina, and Celestial. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the chart for the bottom circle. Now, I've provided two versions of this chart. The first one is all in color, which is really pretty and nice to see on a screen, right? If you're like me and you have a black and white printer, also for people who have issues with color blindness, this version uses only grayscale colors, and each of the colors is labeled on the stitch so you can see the letter for the color that you're going to be working on. So use whichever version works for you. It's the same chart, just two different ways of displaying it. First, let's start with what the stitches mean. When you see this plus sign, that is a single crochet. When you see this kind of funny V sign, what that is, it's actually two pluses that are next to each other, and it just means that you're putting two single crochets into the same stitch. So really everything here is a single crochet. You're either working just one of them or you're working two of them into the same stitch. So let's take a little bit closer look at the colors, okay? Now we're working in the round, so all of our rounds start from the same spot. Right? They start from this side and they go this way because we're not turning our work. So that's why all the numbers are on one side. It says here for each round, work the chart 6 times and then join. So in this round, that means this is round 1, right? You would work a single crochet with color A 6 times around and then join it. See how that works? So row 2, we have our first increase, or round 2, we have our first increase. And you can see that we're working one stitch with color A and one stitch with color B into the same stitch on row 1. So we do that 6 times around. Here, we do one stitch with color A into the first stitch, and then 2 stitches with color B into the color B stitch. So you can follow along like that as we go through the pattern, and I will pop the images on the screen for you, just the couple of rows, the one that you're working into and the one that you're working on. I'll pop that on the screen for you every time that we work around. I keep saying rows, it should be rounds. So the other thing I wanted to point out on here is that every one of these rounds has only 2 colors. Except for round 1. Round 1 has only 1, but all the other rounds have 2 colors. Round 2 has A and B, round 3 has A and B, round 4 has A and B, right? Then we switch to C and B for rounds 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Okay, all of these have only C and B stitches. Then we switch both colors, and rounds 9 and 10, let's see, 9, 10, actually all of them, 9, 10, 11, and 12, all have only colors D and E. So whenever you're working around, you're working with 2 colors. When you're working a stitch in, say, color C on round 8 here, you're going to work over the yarn of color B so it gets hidden inside the stitch. If you're working with color B over here, you're going to work over that other color, the color C. So you've got 2 colors on each round. One you're going to be working with for your stitch and one you're going to be working over. So let's take a look at how it actually works with yarn, and we'll follow along with this chart as we go. We're going to start with Custard, which is our color A. So go ahead and start your circle however you like to. You can use a magic circle or you can use a chain 2. I am going to do what I normally do, which is I don't do a slip knot. I just make a twisted loop and put that on my hook to start. what that does is that it makes this first chain act sort of like a magic circle. So that's sort of a very small magic loop or magic circle right there. And then I do my chain, my second chain. So it's kind of a cross between a magic circle and a chain 2. But whatever method you decided to use, go ahead and put 6 single crochet into either the second chain from your hook or your magic circle. Now, if you made a circle that you can tighten, go ahead and tighten it. If you can't tighten your circle, you can use the tail to sew it closed in the center afterwards. Now it's time to join our circle. And you could join with a slip stitch like normal, but for something a little more invisible, go ahead and make this loop big and take your hook out. Stick your hook into the stitch that you want to join into. Grab that loop and pull it through that stitch. So we haven't made a stitch, we just pulled the active loop through where we wanted to join it, and that is just a slightly less visible join, and you'll see that as we do more rows that it's less visible. So let's start our next row, our next round. Before we start, we're going to add a second color. So I'm going to add Fairy Tale, which is this dark purple burgundy kind of color. And I'm going to just drape that over my working yarn, so that way it'll get caught up in the stitch. And then I'm going to do a chain 1. Now for every stitch in this round, I'm going to do 2 stitches, right? Because I have 6 stitches, I'm going to increase it to 12, just like you would for a normal circle. But I'm going to do the first stitch with custard, and then I'm going to change colors. And notice that I didn't finish my stitch. When you change colors, always change colors in the last pull through or the last step of the previous stitch. So if I want my next color to be in this Fairy Tale, I'm going to pick that up now and change colors to Fairy Tale. Okay, now working over this other color, we always work over the color we're not using. I'm going to stick my hook in that exact same stitch and work a single crochet in the Fairy Tale color. Okay, notice I still haven't finished it because I'm going to switch back to custard. And that's what we're going to do for this whole round. In every stitch, we're going to do 1 stitch of custard and 1 stitch of Fairy Tale. So 1 stitch of custard, change colors, and all our stitches are single crochet here. So when I say 1 stitch, that's 1 single crochet. So 1 stitch of custard, and then 1 stitch of Fairy Tale. And notice that I'm making sure these extra tails, these extra unused yarns, get put over my hook so that they get caught up in the stitches. Okay, now I pick up my custard and I finish that stitch to change colors. Again, I'm making sure to work over that unused color. 1 stitch in custard, 1 stitch in Fairy Tale. I'm going to keep doing this all the way around. So now I have 6 stitches of each color. When I get to the end of the round, I want to change back to the custard because I'm joining into a custard stitch, okay? And because I'm going to be working a custard stitch into that stitch. So I'm changing back to the custard color at the end of this last stitch. And then I'm going to do that same join that we did before by pulling that loop up big, sticking my hook in where I want to join to, and then pulling this loop through. Chain 1 to start the next round, and in the next round we want to go from 12 stitches to 18 stitches. So we want to increase 6 stitches with every round to keep it nice and flat. So I'm going to be increasing in every other stitch. I've decided for this pattern I'm going to increase in each of the darker color stitches, each of the Fairy Tale color stitches. So in the yellow stitch, I'm going to go ahead and do, remember to always work over your other yarn, not the tail. There we go. Always work over your other yarn. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in this stitch, just a normal single crochet, but I'm changing colors. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochet in this stitch in that Fairy Tale color. So there's 1 and there's 2. Switch back to the custard color, and I'm going to do 1 stitch in this one, this color A. I'm going to say color A and color B because it's faster. So 1 stitch in color A, switch back to color B, 2 stitches in the same stitch of color B. Switch back to A, 1 of A, switch back to B, 2 of B, and I'll continue that all the way around. Now you want to make sure as you're working over your unused yarn that you're not pulling it too tight. You're going very loosely because if you pull it too tight, it'll start to cinch in that row and make your stitches very tight. See how that stitch got really tight when I pulled on that? So you don't want to pull it overly tight. You want to be nice and gentle as you're working over the unused yarn. Also notice when I'm switching colors, I'm making sure to switch them back and forth so that they don't get tangled. My yarns are completely separate. I switch, if they're twisted this way, then I switch colors the opposite way so that it undoes the twist. So I look at how they're twisted before I switch. Now I've finished the round. I'm going to change back to my color A so that I can join to this color A stitch. Even for the joining, I'm putting that extra color over my hook so that it gets nice and wrapped up in there. Okay, so that is my join, and you can see how seamless and pretty that join looks, right? Compared to a bulkier join. So we were up to 18 stitches and we've got to increase by 6, so that'll bring us to 24 stitches. And if you notice, there's 6 divisions in the pattern, right? If there's 6 sets of this yellow stitch or color A stitch and 2 color B stitches, yeah? So there's 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets. We're increasing 6 in each round. So instead of trying to keep track of how many stitches we need to have between each increase, we can just say, look, we're increasing once in every one of these 6 repeats. So in this case, I want to put my increase here into the second of the color B stitches. So I'm going to chain 1, and again, I'm catching that extra unused yarn in my chain, right? I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to single crochet in this first stitch with A. Then I switch to B and I single crochet in this stitch, and then I'm going to do my increase, 2 single crochets in this stitch. Okay, switch to color A, and I'm going to do 1 stitch in color A right there. Switch to color B, 1 in this one, and 2 in this one. Now you'll notice that I'm always putting these increases on the left side of this pattern, and the reason for that is when you're working in the round like this without turning, your stitches will start to shift to the right. So at least if you're right-handed, they will. So this will counteract that shifting of the pattern because we're increasing to the left, so it'll shift it back to the left a little bit. It won't counteract it completely, but it'll counteract it a little bit. So now I switch to color A, and we've got 1, and then with color B, 2, 3, and 4. So each of our sections has 4 stitches in it, which means, 6 times 4, 24. We've got 24 stitches in this round. I've reached the end of the round and it's time to join, but I want to change colors. I'm not going to be using color A anymore. I'm going to switch it to color C. So instead of changing to color A to finish off this last stitch, I'm going to go ahead and change to color C. Now I'm going to pull all of my tails. I'm dropping color A, so that goes down to the bottom and the back. Hold all my tails down and make sure that I'm working over just the working yarn of color B. Okay, so I'm working over color B, and I'm going to pull this loop up big, insert my hook into this stitch where I want to join it, put the color B over my hook so that I'm working over it, and pull through this loop of color C. Okay, it'll be floppy. Go ahead and pull on the color C tail to tighten that up a bit. I know now yarn management is getting to be an issue, right? You can cut your color A. If you're not sure about your pattern, this is a trick that I use when I'm designing a lot. I don't cut any of my yarns until I know for 100% sure that this is what I'm going to do, because if I want to change it, I then have to rip it out later, and I don't want little bits of yarn that have been cut. So you can cut your yarn now. You're not going to need it. You can cut it and weave in a tail later. But if you're not 100% sure what you're doing, leave it for now. You can always cut it later, right? Okay, so chain 1 to start the next round. And we're going to do a single crochet in this stitch. And again, in each of these sections, I need to do 1 increase, right? I'm doing the same thing I did last time, putting that increase in the last stitch of the darker color. So I'm going to do my 1 stitch in color C, and I'm going to pick up color B. There we go. And then I'm doing 1 stitch in this one, 1 stitch in this one. Notice I'm still working over the unused color. I've dropped the yellow, but I'm working over the pink. Okay, and then in this last stitch of this color, I'm going to go ahead and do 2 stitches, and that'll give me the 1 increase. So now each of our sections has, changing back to color C, each of our sections has 1, and switch colors, 2, 3, and then 2 in here, so 4 and 5. So each of our sections now has 5 stitches, and there's 6 sections, which means that we now have 30 stitches on this round. Okay, I've worked my last stitch of color B, and I'm going to switch back to color C to do the join. Now you can, if you want to, use stitch markers to mark the first stitch of the round. I find it fairly obvious with all the color work where the first stitch of my round is. So I'm just going to join right in there because I know that was the first pink stitch, and that's the first stitch of my round. So there we go. Now I'm going to start shaping these petals a little bit. So I still want 1 increase in each section, and I'm going to put that in the last dark stitch that I do. So I'm also, while I do that, I'm going to be expanding the light pink section so that it goes into the dark pink by 1 stitch on each side. So with color C, I've done my chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, and then single crochet into this first stitch of color B. Okay? Change colors, single crochet in the next stitch of color B, and then do an increase in the next stitch here. Change colors, and let's start the repeat here. So it is 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3 stitches of color C, change to color B, 1, and then increase 2 and 3 stitches of color B. So now we have 6 stitches in each section, which makes 36 stitches all the way around. Now when I get to the end of the round, I've just done my increase here, and I still have 1 more stitch left, right? Because remember, we worked 1 light pink stitch into the end of each of these dark pink sections. So I'm going to go ahead and change to the light pink, okay, to my color C, and then work that last stitch in color C. So now I have 1, 2 stitches of color C here, and the 3rd stitch right here. So I'm already in the right color. I can just go ahead and join. For the next round, we're going to do very much the same thing. We're going to encroach by 1 stitch on each side, and then we're going to do the increase in the center. So chain 1, single crochet with the light pink, single crochet with the light pink, and then 1 more single crochet with the light pink. Switch colors, and then just do the increase in the dark pink. So 1, 2, change colors, and here we start the repeat. There are 5 stitches now. We had 3, now there'll be 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches in color C, switch to color B, 2 stitches in color B. Okay, that's an increase in color B, sorry. So that's 5, 6, 7 stitches in each section. 7 times 6 is 42, so we have 42 stitches now in this round. Now at the end of the round, we have these last 2 stitches to do in the light pink. And then we can go ahead and join. And chain 1 to start the next round. Now in this last round, right now we have 2 dark pink colors in each of these petals, right? 2 dark pink stitches. In the last round, I want to change that to be 1 dark pink stitch. So I'm going to still do my increase in that section, but I'm going to do the increase in both colors. So see how that works. Chain 1, single crochet in the first 4 stitches, okay? Change colors, and now I'm going to do 1 stitch of the dark pink, and then in the same stitch for the increase, I'm going to do 1 stitch of the light pink. So now it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches in light pink, and just 1 in the dark pink. There's the dark pink, and then same stitch for the first light pink stitch. Okay, that gives us our increase, which means we have 8 stitches in each section now, and 6 times 8 is 48. Now as I get to the end here, I had done 4 stitches in color C over here, which means there's 7 in each group, right? I have to do 3 more. So 1 is this increase here. There's 1, and then there's these 2 left over here. Now before I finish off and join, let's look at the colors for the next round. I'm going to be changing to the Marina color and the blue color. Both colors, the Marina and Celestial, both colors are new for the next round. So the color that I'm starting with is going to be the Marina color. So I'm going to go ahead and change to that. So I've changed to Marina. And now I'm going to go ahead and join, and I'm going to actually drop everything at the back. I don't need any of those pink colors anymore. So I'm actually going to just join this one with nothing else carried through, just that color. Okay? So now this is color D. This was A, this was B, this was C, and now this is D. I'm also going to change where I put my increases on this round. I'm actually going to start with the increase. So I'm going to work 2 stitches of color D into this first stitch. Now remember, we always have to work over the unused color. So even though we haven't started it yet, we still have to work over the tail of what's going to be our color E. So bring that over there. And make sure that we're working that into our stitches as well. So I've chained 1, and actually I probably should have even worked that into the chain. So let's rip out that chain and let's work that tail right into that chain. Okay, so I've chained 1, and now I'm going to put 2 stitches into this first stitch. There we go. That is my increase. So now my increases are going to be basically in the center of each of these light pink sections. So I've done that increase, and I'm actually going to go ahead and change to color B, or color E, sorry. We are on color E now. We've used all our colors, yay. Okay, so I'm changing to color E, and now I'm going to work all the way across till I get to that center stitch again. So if you remember, I had 7 stitches in this section here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to be working into that 4th stitch in my increase. So that means to get me there, I need to go over that. 1, 2, 3 on this side, 4 for the flower, 5, 6, and 7. So I still have 7, right? So now I have 7 and then the increase over here. So 7 plus 2 for the increase makes 9, and 9 times 6 is 54. So this round has 54 stitches. So that was my increase. Oops, I shouldn't have finished there. I switch back to color B, or color E. Okay, and then work 7 more in color E. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Switch to color D, increase in color D, and 7 more in color E. And I'm ending here with 7 in color E. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Get that tail out of the way. Change back to color D for the joining, just like we did in the beginning. Okay. So now we've shifted both of our colors at once. For the next round, I'm going to expand each of these color D sections by 2 stitches, and I'm going to do that by putting an increase here and then working 1 stitch this way. Okay, so I chain 1 and I go single crochet in the first stitch, increase in the next stitch, okay, and then single crochet in the next stitch of the darker color. Pick up my darker color. So that was 4 stitches in color D. So I've picked up color E and I should have 6 stitches in color E. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So now that makes 10 stitches in each section for 60 stitches in the round. I'm doing 1 stitch in color D, then an increase in color D, and then 1 more stitch in color D. So that's 4 stitches in color D. Four, 5, 6 stitches in color E, and we repeat that all the way around. Now as I finish this last stitch, I'm going to go ahead and change to color D for the join. Now on this next round, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to take these 4 stitches, split them into 2 and 2 with an increase in the middle. So we're going to start with a chain 1. We're going to single crochet in the first 2 stitches. Okay, now switch to the color E. And in the next stitch, do an increase in color E. So 2 stitches of color E. There's our increase for the section. Now switch back to color D and work 2 stitches in color D. And you can see that's made kind of a V for us. Again, it's not perfectly symmetrical because I'm countering the natural curling of the shape from working in the round like this. The natural twisting. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, okay, then 1, 2, switch colors, 3, 4 for the increase, switch colors, and 5, 6. So it's 5 and 6, which is 11, and 11 times 6 gives us 66. So there are 66 stitches in this round. And as I come to the end of the round, I'm going to change colors so that I can join in the same color as the beginning of the round. For this last round, we're basically just going to crochet the stitches as we see them, except that I'm going to add an increase in the center of the V. So chain 1, and we're going to single crochet with the lighter color in the lighter color stitches, And then we're going to switch to the darker color, and we'll single crochet with the darker color in the darker color stitches. The difference is in this second stitch at the center of the V, we're going to put our increase. Okay, so, oops, forgot to change at the end of the stitch. It's very important. Okay, so now let's count per segment here. If I start here, that is 1, 2 stitches in the lighter color, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches in the darker color, so we're at a total of 7 so far. 8 and 9 for the lighter color. And then the increase gives us 10, 11, here's the increase, 11 and 12 in that same stitch. So there are 12 stitches per section, because now we're back to where we started counting. And 6 times 12 means we have 72 stitches in this final round. And as I finish this last stitch, I'm going to go ahead and change back to the lighter color so that I can join. And for this last round, just because I'm going to be continuing to work into the back post of stitches for the bag that I'm working on, I'm going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch. If you are not making this as the base of a bag or anything like that, you can join however you normally like, you know, slip stitch, pull the yarn through, whatever is easiest for you to finish off your circle. Now this finished circle should be approximately 6 inches. It's actually going to be a little bit more, just like maybe a 6 1/8 inch there. But if you're making the bag, you don't want it to be too much bigger than that. Otherwise, you're going to run out of yarn. This is a very tight fit to the amount of yarn that I had. So you definitely don't want to make it any bigger than that. A little smaller is okay. Now I left all these yarns going because I wanted to make sure, you know, that I didn't need to rip anything out. You can definitely cut them as you go, and now is the time to weave them in. And once you are done with that, you'll have this beautiful circle. And that's how you make this tapestry crochet circle. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching.